Learn English easily with Pro English.
Welcome back to the Speak English podcast. Today we have a very serious, yet incredibly important topic. We often talk about English for travel, for business, or for making friends. But what happens when things go wrong? What happens when you are alone in a foreign country? You wake up with a terrible fever, or you eat something that disagrees with you, and you need to navigate the healthcare system. Today, we are going to the pharmacy. We will learn the specific survival vocabulary you need to buy medicine, describe your pain accurately, and understand exactly what the pharmacist is telling you so you don't accidentally take the wrong pill. This is English that literally saves your day.
This is honestly my biggest nightmare when I travel. I remember being in London once, and I had this splitting headache. I walked into a shop looking for Tylenol, which is the brand I use at home, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I started panicking. I felt so sick, and I didn't know if they just didn't have it or if it was called something else. I ended up buying something random because I was too embarrassed to ask the pharmacist. I was afraid I wouldn't understand the chemical names. So please, tell me we are going to cover brand names versus generic names today, because that confused me so much.
Absolutely, that is the first rule of pharmacy survival. Know the active ingredient. Brand names change from country to country. Tylenol is a brand name in the US. In the UK, that same drug is often called Panadol. But the chemical name, the active ingredient, is almost always the same or very similar. In this case, you were looking for paracetamol, used in the UK/Europe, or acetaminophen, used in the US. If you know the word paracetamol, you can walk into a pharmacy in Tokyo, Berlin, or Lima, and the pharmacist will understand you. Never rely on the color of the box or the brand name you use at home. Rely on the scientific name.
Paracetamol versus acetaminophen. Okay, I need to write that down. That distinction alone would have saved me so much trouble. But let's back up a little bit to the store itself. In my country, a pharmacy is a place where you only buy medicine. But in the US and UK, it seems like you can buy chocolate, makeup, and even cigarettes at the same place where you buy your heart medication. It is very confusing. What is the difference between a drugstore, a pharmacy, and a chemist? Are they the same thing, or should I be looking for specific signs depending on where I am?
That is a great cultural observation. In the United States, we usually say drugstore or pharmacy. A chain like CVS or Walgreens is a huge store where, yes, you can buy soda and shampoo. The pharmacy is usually just a counter inside the drugstore, located at the very back. In the UK, they often use the word chemist or pharmacy, like Boots or Superdrug. But here is the critical vocabulary distinction you need. OTC versus RX. OTC stands for over-the-counter. These are medicines you can pick up off the shelf yourself without a doctor's note. RX, or prescription, means you need a doctor's authorization.
OTC, over the counter, and prescription. Got it. So, if I have a simple headache or a cold, I am looking for OTC meds. But if I have a serious infection, I need a prescription. Now, let's talk about the interaction with the pharmacist. I usually freeze because I don't know if I should say, I have a migraine, or just, my head hurts. I try to use medical terms to sound smart, but I am pretty sure I use them wrong. Is it better to be specific with medical Latin terms, or should I just describe the feeling in simple English?
Always describe the symptoms. Do not try to give a diagnosis. If you walk in and say, I have bronchitis, the pharmacist might ignore you because you are not a doctor. But if you say, I have a deep, dry cough and my chest feels tight, the pharmacist can actually help you. We need to master the pain vocabulary. In English, we have very specific words for pain. Ache, pain, sore, and hurt. They are not interchangeable. Ache, pronounced like cake, usually refers to a continuous, dull pain that isn't too strong but doesn't stop, like a headache, stomachache, or backache.
Okay, ache is the dull, constant background noise of pain. Headache is the classic example, But what about sore? I hear people say, I have a sore throat, or I am sore from the gym. How is sore different from ache? To me, they both just mean ouch. Is sore more about inflammation? Or is it about touch? Because when I have a sore throat, it hurts specifically when I swallow. And when my legs are sore from running, they hurt when I move or touch them.
You nailed it. Sore usually implies inflammation or pain triggered by touch or movement. A sore throat is raw and red. It hurts to use it. Sore muscles hurt when you move them. You wouldn't say, I have a sore head for a headache. That sounds weird unless you literally bumped your head on a door. Now, let's talk about sharp versus dull pain. If you cut your finger, that is a sharp pain. If you have a migraine, people often say it is throbbing or pounding, like there is a drum beating inside your head. Using adjectives like throbbing, sharp, dull, or stinging helps the pharmacist choose the right painkiller.
Throbbing is such a descriptive word. I can practically feel it just hearing you say it. Okay, let's move to the embarrassing stuff. Stomach issues. This is the number one reason I go to pharmacies when I travel. Foreign food is delicious, but sometimes dangerous. How do I politely tell the pharmacist I have explosive bathroom problems without sounding gross or vulgar? I don't want to shout diarrhea in a quiet shop. Are there polite ways to describe stomach disasters in English?
This is where euphemisms save your life. You don't need to be graphic. The most common polite phrase is, I have an upset stomach. This covers everything from a little indigestion to full-blown food poisoning. If you feel like you are going to vomit, you say, I feel nauseous, pronounced nauseous. If you have diarrhea, you can say, I have a loose stomach, or simply, I have stomach issues. If you are close with friends, you might say, I have the runs. But don't say that to a pharmacist unless you are desperate. Usually, simply saying, I have food poisoning, tells them everything they need to know without the messy details.
Upset stomach and food poisoning. That is much safer. I will stick to those. What about the opposite problem, constipation? I feel like that is just a medical word, right? It is not a swear word. I assume I can just say, I am constipated. Or is there a polite way to say that too? Sometimes travel stress blocks everything up, and you need help. I just want to make sure I am not being rude by being too direct about my bodily functions in a British or American pharmacy.
Constipated is a perfectly acceptable medical term. It is not rude at all. You can say, I am constipated, or I need a laxative. A laxative is the medicine that, well, gets things moving. Now let's shift to the most common reason for pharmacy visits, the cold and the flu. First, a major grammar warning. In Spanish, you say tengo frío, I have cold. In English, if you say I am cold, it means you need a jacket. If you are sick with a virus, you must say I have a cold. That little article, changes everything.
I have a cold, vs. I am cold. That is a classic mistake. I have definitely told people I am cold while shivering with a fever, and they just offered me a blanket instead of medicine. Okay, so I have a cold. My nose is a disaster. It is either running like a faucet or completely blocked like a brick wall. What is the vocabulary for nose problems? Runny nose is one I know, but how do I describe that feeling when you can't breathe at all?
Great question. If fluid is coming out, it is a runny nose. If you cannot breathe because it is blocked, you say, my nose is stuffed up, or I am congested. Congestion is the medical term for that blocked feeling. The pharmacist might recommend a decongestant. This is the type of medicine, like Sudafed, that clears the blockage. Be careful though, decongestants can make you feel jittery, like too much coffee. You might also hear the phrase postnasal drip, which is when the mucus goes down the back of your throat. Disgusting, but common.
Postnasal drip. Too much information, but very useful. What about coughing? I know there are different syrups for different coughs. Sometimes I have a dry, tickly cough that just won't stop. Other times, I have that deep, rattling cough where stuff is coming up from my lungs. I assume the medicine is different for each one. How do I explain the difference so I don't buy the wrong syrup? I remember seeing expectorant and suppressant on bottles once and having no idea which was which.
This is a critical safety distinction. A dry cough is tickly and unproductive and nothing comes up. For this, you want a cough suppressant. It suppresses or stops the urge to cough. A chesty cough or productive cough is when you have phlegm pronounced phlegm, the G is silent in your lungs. For this, you need an expectorant. It helps you expel or spit out the mucus. If you take a suppressant when you have a chesty cough, you trap the bacteria in your lungs, which is dangerous. So, tell the pharmacist, is it for a dry cough or a chesty cough?
Phlegm with a silent G English spelling is evil. Okay, let's talk about allergies. Springtime is beautiful, but for me, it is torture. My eyes get red and itchy, I sneeze 100 times a day, and I get a rash if I touch certain plants. I usually look for antihistamines. Is that the standard word? And how do I describe a rash? Is a rash just red skin, or does it have to be bumpy? I want to make sure I am describing skin reactions correctly.
Yes, antihistamine is the standard word for allergy medication like Claritin or Zeotec. For the symptoms, you can say, my eyes are itchy and watery. For the skin, a rash is a general term for any area of irritated or swollen skin. If you have specific red, raised bumps that appear suddenly, like after eating peanuts, those are called hives. So you might say, I broke out in hives. The pharmacist might offer you a cream or an ointment. An ointment is usually greasy and oily like Vaseline, while a cream absorbs into the skin and is lighter.
Hives vs rash. That is a good nuance. Hives sound more like an immediate allergic reaction. Now I want to ask about the interaction at the counter. I tend to say, give me Tylenol. I know that is too direct and sounds rude. What are the magic phrases to ask for medicine politely? Also, how do I ask for advice if I don't know what I need? I want to sound like a polite adult, not a demanding tourist.
Give me is definitely too aggressive. The best structure is I need something for, followed by your symptom. I need something for a dry cough. Or, if you want a recommendation, ask, what do you recommend for? A mosquito bite. If you are looking for a specific brand, try, do you carry aspirin? Or do you stock ibuprofen? If the pharmacist gives you a box, always ask, does this cause drowsiness? This is vital. Some allergy meds will knock you out, and you don't want to fall asleep while driving a rental car or in a business meeting.
That is a huge one. Drowsy vs non-drowsy. I learned that the hard way. I took a nighttime, cold medicine at 9 a.m. once and spent the whole day walking around like a zombie. What about dosage instructions? I get confused by the phrases on the bottle. Take every 4 hours. Do not exceed. Take on an empty stomach. Can we break down the most common instructions found on pill bottles?
Absolutely. Dosage is the amount you take. Take 2 tablets every 4 hours is standard, but watch out for do not exceed X tablets in 24 hours. Exceed means to go over the limit. This is serious for liver safety. Another key phrase is take with food or take after a meal. This means the medicine is strong and might hurt your stomach if it is empty. Conversely, take on an empty stomach usually means 1 hour before eating or 2 hours after. And finally, finish the course. This is specific to antibiotics. Even if you feel better on day 3, you must take the pills for all 7 days.
Finish the course. My mom always yelled at me about that. Don't stop just because the fever is gone. Okay, let's talk about money and insurance quickly. In the US, the healthcare system is complicated. If I am a tourist and I go to a pharmacy, do I just pay cash? Or do I need to show travel insurance? I have heard horror stories about 100 aspirin pills. What should I expect at the checkout counter?
In a pharmacy, drugstore for OTC meds, you just pay cash or card like any other shop. Prices are normal 10 for a bottle of aspirin, not 100. The horror stories are usually about hospital visits. However, if you are picking up a prescription, that is where insurance matters. As a tourist, you will likely pay out of pocket, meaning you pay the full price yourself and then keep the receipt to claim it back from your travel insurance later. You might hear locals talk about a copay, which is the small fee they pay while insurance pays the rest, but tourists rarely have that luxury.
Out of pocket. That is a good idiom. It means I pay 100 right now. Okay, one last heavy question before we take a break. How do I know when to go to a pharmacy and when to go to a hospital? I tend to be a hypochondriac, so I think everything is an emergency. But I also don't want to waste time in an ER for a simple cold. What are the red flags, or vocabulary words that mean, go to the hospital now?
The pharmacy is for discomfort, the hospital is for danger. If you have shortness of breath, you can't breathe, chest pain, could be heart-related or anaphylaxis. Throat closing up from allergy, do not go to a pharmacy. Call 911 in the US or 999 in the UK. Also, if you have a high fever that won't go down with medication, or if you are dehydrated from too much vomiting, you need a doctor. The pharmacist is helpful, but they cannot give you stitches for a deep cut or an IV for fluids. Use your judgment, but if you can walk and talk, try the pharmacy first.
That is a good rule of thumb. If you can walk and talk, try the pharmacy first. Okay, my brain is full of medical terms now. I feel much more confident about buying pills without accidentally poisoning myself. We have covered symptoms, the different types of pain, the stomach issues, and the all-important dosage instructions.
We have covered a lot, but we are not done yet. In part 2, we are going to role-play these specific interactions. I am going to pretend to be the pharmacist, and you are going to be the sick tourist. We will practice the pronunciation of those tricky words like nauseous and anesthetist, and we will talk about buying other pharmacy items like vitamins and first aid supplies. Stay tuned. TEMA, at the pharmacy part 2. Roleplay first aid, DURACINPARTE 2, 15 minutos aprox. Welcome back to part 2. We have learned the vocabulary for symptoms, pain, and dosage. Now, we are going to put it all together in a simulation. I want you to imagine you are in a pharmacy in London. You have a terrible migraine and you think you might be getting a fever. I am going to be the pharmacist. I want you to walk up to the counter and ask for help. Remember, do not just say, "Give me medicine." Use the polite structures we practiced. "I need something for," or "What do you recommend for? Are you ready to give it a try?"
I am ready, but I am also nervous. Okay, let me get into character. I am a tourist, I am in pain, and I am polite, clears throat. Hi, excuse me, I have a really bad headache. It is throbbing behind my eyes. And I think I feel a bit hot, like I might have a fever. What do you recommend? I usually take Tylenol at home, but I don't see it here. How was that? Was that too much information? Or was it clear enough for you to understand what I need?
That was excellent. You described the type of pain, throbbing, the location, behind my eyes, and the additional symptom, feeling hot. As the pharmacist, I would say, I can certainly help with that. Since you are looking for Tylenol, we call that paracetamol here. However, for a migraine, I might recommend something with added caffeine or codeine, which is stronger. Do you have any allergies to codeine? And are you taking any other medication right now? Now, Sarah, this is a tricky moment. If you don't know what codeine is, or if you are unsure about the allergy question, how do you respond?
If you asked me about codeine, I would probably freeze because I am not sure if I am allergic to it. I usually stick to the basics, so I would probably say, I am not sure, so I prefer to stick to regular paracetamol just to be safe. And no, I am not taking other medications. That feels like the safest answer. But wait, you mentioned added caffeine. Why would a painkiller have caffeine? Doesn't caffeine give you headaches? That seems counterintuitive. I would be afraid that taking caffeine would make my throbbing head explode.
That is a very common misconception. Caffeine actually constricts blood vessels. Since a migraine is often caused by blood vessels expanding in the brain, caffeine helps shrink them back down, which relieves the pain. That is why Excedrin, a famous migraine brand, has caffeine. But back to the role play, you made a smart choice. If you are unsure about an allergy, always say no to the new drug. Safety first. Now let's practice pronunciation. There are some pharmacy words that are absolute nightmares for students. I want you to try saying this word, anesthetist.
Oh no, that word looks like a tongue twister from hell. Anesthetist. It feels like I have a mouthful of marbles. It's the TH followed by the T that makes it so hard. I feel like I am spitting when I say it. Can we break it down? Also, while we are on hard words, can we do prescription again? I sometimes say prescription with an ER instead of RE. I hear native speakers say it fast and it gets blurry.
Let's tackle anesthetist first. It is anesthetist. The stress is on the second syllable. You essentially have to stick your tongue out for the TH and then pull it back sharply for the tist. It takes muscle memory. As for prescription, you are right, many natives get lazy and say prescription. But the correct pronunciation is prescription. Think of the prefix pre, meaning before. The doctor writes it before you get the medicine. Another one that kills students is diarrhea. It looks like diarrhea, but we pronounce it diarrhea.
Diarrhea, okay, that is actually easier than it looks on paper. The spelling is definitely worse than the sound. One word that always trips me up is nauseous. I never know if it is nauseous or nauseous. And I heard someone say once that nauseous means you are disgusting and nauseated means you feel sick. Is that true? Have I been walking around telling people I am disgusting when I meant I want to vomit? That would be mortifying.
That is a classic grammar debate. Technically, 50 years ago, yes, nauseous meant causing nausea, like a bad smell, and nauseated meant feeling sick. But language evolves. Today, in modern English, 99 of native speakers use nauseous, pronounced naw to mean feeling sick. If you say, I feel nauseous, nobody will think you are calling yourself disgusting. They will hand you a bucket, so don't worry about that old rule. Just focus on the pronunciation. It sounds like the word shoe in the middle. Nauseous.
Thank goodness for language evolution. I will stick with nauseous. Okay, let's move away from the scary heavy drugs and talk about the first aid aisle. I am clumsy. I get blisters when I walk too much in new shoes and I cut my fingers on paper. I need to know what to buy for minor injuries. In my country, we ask for a curita. In the US, they say Band-Aid, but in the UK, they looked at me like I was crazy and told me to buy a plaster. Why can't you guys agree on one word for a sticky strip?
It is the Great Atlantic Divide. In the US, Band-Aid is the generic trademark like Kleenex. In the UK, it is strictly called a plaster. If you ask for a Band-Aid in London, they might understand, but plaster is the local word. If you have a blister from walking, you should ask for blister plasters, like the brand Compeed. They are different from regular ones. They have a gel cushion. Also, for cleaning a cut, you need antiseptic, like rubbing alcohol or hydrogen peroxide, and maybe some cotton balls or gauze. Pronounce gauze if it is bleeding heavily.
Gauze, that is a new one for me. It sounds like the word pause. Okay, so I have my plasters, my antiseptic, and my gauze. What about creams for bug bites or burns? I got a terrible sunburn on my last trip, and I wanted that cooling aloe gel, but I didn't know if aloe vera was pronounced the same way in English. And for mosquito bites, is there a specific word for the cream that stops the itching? I tried to mime scratching to the pharmacist once, and it looked like I had fleas.
Mime is a universal language, but words are better. For sunburn, yes, aloe vera is used, but we pronounce it aloe vera. For mosquito bites, you want anti-itch cream or hydrocortisone. That is the magic ingredient that stops the itching. If you have a burn from a hot stove, not the sun, you might need burn ointment. By the way, if you twist your ankle while walking, you might need an elastic bandage, often called an ACE bandage in the US. And you might want an ice pack. You know, the blue bag you put in the freezer.
Okay, this first aid kit is getting full. Plasters, antiseptic, gauze, aloe vera, hydrocortisone, and an elastic bandage. I feel safer already. Now, what about the wellness section? Vitamins and supplements. I take magnesium for sleep and vitamin C for immunity. Are the names of vitamins the same? And how do I ask for multivitamins? Is it just one word? Sometimes the bottles have fancy names like immune support or stress relief, and I get confused about what is actually inside them.
Vitamins are generally easy because the letters A, B, C, D are universal, but the pronunciation of the word vitamin changes. In the US, it is vitamin like the word I. In the UK, it is vitamin like the word bit, so be ready for that. Multivitamin is just one word. For minerals, pronunciation can be tricky. Magnesium is magnesium. Calcium is calcium. Zinc is just zinc. If you see immune support, check the back label. It usually just means a mix of vitamin C and zinc. Always read the supplement facts panel on the back to know the truth.
Vitamin versus vitamin, I love those little differences. It makes me feel like a spy trying to blend in. Okay, one practical question about the pharmacy layout. In some countries, you have to ask the pharmacist for everything, even aspirin. In the US, it seems like you can take almost everything off the shelf yourself. How do I know what I can touch and what I have to ask for? I don't want to set off an alarm by opening a cabinet I shouldn't touch. Is there a visual clue?
Generally, if it is on an open shelf in the aisles, you can take it. These are the OTC, over-the-counter items. However, some medicines like Sudafed for congestion are kept behind the counter in the US, even though you don't need a prescription. This is because they can be used to make illegal drugs, so they track who buys them. You have to take a little plastic card from the shelf to the counter, or just ask the pharmacist, "Do I need to sign for this?" Or, "Is this kept behind the counter?" If you see a locked glass case, obviously, don't try to open it.
Do I need to sign for this? That is a great phrase. It shows I understand the system. Okay, we are reaching the end of our deep dive. This has been incredibly helpful. I feel like I can walk into a CVS or a Boots and actually handle the situation without having a panic attack. I have my vocabulary for pain, my polite request phrases, my pronunciation for anesthetist. I will practice that in the shower and my first aid list. Do you have any final words of wisdom for anyone afraid of getting sick abroad?
My final advice is this: don't wait until it is an emergency. If you are traveling, go to a pharmacy on your very first day when you are feeling healthy. Just walk in and look around. Find the ibuprofen. Find the water. Get comfortable with the layout. Buy a small bottle of hand sanitizer just to have a low-stress interaction with the cashier. This practice run breaks the fear barrier. So when you do get sick at 2 a.m. 3 days later, your brain already knows. I have been here, I can do this. Preparation is the antidote to panic.
That is such smart advice. A pharmacy reconnaissance mission on day one. I am definitely doing that on my next trip. Thank you so much for guiding me through this medical maze. I hope I never have to use these words, but I am so glad I have them just in case. And to our listeners, I hope you stay healthy, but if you don't, now you know exactly what to say.
Exactly. Stay healthy, stay hydrated, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Pharmacists are there to assist you, and they are usually very patient people. Thank you for listening to this survival episode of the Speak English podcast. Keep practicing those role plays, and we will see you in the next session where we tackle the bank. Goodbye, everyone.
The bank, oh no, more numbers. Okay, I will be ready. Bye, everyone. Fin del episodio Part 2. Con esto tines el guion completo de 30 minutos, Part 1 plus Part 2.